Recording. It's so easy to so welcome for the ladies who are receiving this beautiful recording. I'm just sharing with the ladies here tonight, how I've journeyed a lot of the distortions around desire and wanting. And it just feels so good to be able to come back on the other side and be able to share and reconnect to these rightful codes of desire and creation as a result of our desire, and what it is and what it means and what it actually provides to the world and to the masculine structures in our life, not just the men, but to us, and in our journeying of rekindling and healing our relationship to those sources. Um, the previous night, we talked about and we journeyed into the heart womb connection and what we call the root of the rose. And so, Nina, you're here for the first time, and we explored this sort of beautiful connection between nature and our beautiful creation that God has placed inside of us, as sort of viewing the earth as our heart, like the soil as our heart, and our identities as a seed being planted inside of that heart. And so the provision that we receive gets to be poured into us, the love gets to be poured into us, and that seed that is us carries all of the potential that we will ever have for expression out into the world, for love out into the world. It has all of the divine codes that God has put in just us. And when we receive that love, and when we're rooted in love, when our identity is rooted in love in our hearts, when we source our identity from our heart first, then we can root into the deep unknown. So love is this deep, beautiful, the word that's coming to me now is this garden soil that's endless, and it's so nutrient dense. And when we are rooted and seeded and planted in love, if you envision a flower, there's a soil here and it's deep, and there's a lot of areas that we're able to see, but the further down you go, the more unknown and kind of quiet it becomes. And that's our womb space. That's our connection to God, our rooting. And so before we even blossom, anything even comes up to the surface, there's this beautiful, strong, yet delicate rooting system that's developed, that's rooted in love. But the problem comes when we begin to root in our mind. So it's not rooted in our hearts, and it's very easily swayed by others' opinions, by our anxieties, and the current codes and templates of the world are very much so rooted in the mind and the shoulds and the shouldn'ts. And so we have to bring ourselves into right relationship with the Creator's design. And, when we're creating from the heart, our blooms are beautiful, and, everyone around us gets to see the beauty and be inspired by it and feel motivated. And I was sharing with Heather and the other ladies last night about how beauty is carries such a tone of comfort. It is us seeing that there was something beautiful created, whether we're looking at a tree or, we're looking at ancient paintings or things that people have made. It stirs something in us at a very visceral level that gives us a physical knowing inside of our being that's beyond the head, but that's rooted in the heart and in the body. in our sense of identity that touches us at a very deep level that's beyond here, that seeds something in us and roots something in us as an inspirational force. And it comforts us knowing that beauty was created, beauty can be created in the future. And that's actually what motivates us to keep going in life. And as women, like since the dawn of time, we have been known and understood to be comfort, to be a source of comfort. But our relationship to that comfort becomes kind of distorted, even when it's rooted in this sort of feeling that we have to perform, or there's certain things that we should or shouldn't do. And our comfort isn't rooted in love. Our art isn't rooted in love. Our beauty isn't rooted in love. And so, with all that being said, as our sort of prequel, we'll get into desire. And I think it feels right to first talk about some of the distortions that we have around desire. There is a very strong current and grid that a lot of people, but even more so, a lot of women are plugged into around guilt, shame, shouldn't, that informs our desire or what we believe is our desire. And I think what's really, it's not funny, but it's interesting that so much of, I believe, what we think we desire now is rooted in the head. It's not rooted in the heart. And so it's not actually a desire. It's an analysis. It's a strategy for how we stay safe in the world, how we stay being able to be loved. You know, I'm the strategy to avoid that feeling of lack that we feel within us, because we're not rooted and we're not trusting and we're not receiving. So we're like, I need this thing, or I think I'm saying I desire this thing, but it's not rooted in love. So it's not a true desire. So, all right. So let's just go in. So why do we even have desires in the first place? Our desires are really here to usher us into right relationship to the masculine as an energy, as a force, really, to exalt that both within ourselves and out in the world, not just in men, but in the masculine containers that hold us, whether that's our job or the schools that we attend, or the schools that our children attend, or the churches that we attend. And so when we source our desire from the heart, and we're really still and present to first, you know, rooting in love, and then letting that love inform what we love, how we love. What does this mean about the love that I uniquely carry, right? And then rooting that in our creational center. Then we can really understand what it is that we truly desire. When we first understand that we're rooted in love, and then let that love inform who we are in relationship to love as a creational being. What love codes do we uniquely carry? Not in the head what people have told us that we should desire or what we think that we need, because again, that's not our desire. So, rooting in love here, we can begin to understand the womb space as this creational portal of connection that's very much so like the deep dark of the soil, the deep the depths of the soil, the dark, the part that we can't dig up, that we can't see, where our roots are really deep in that. And that's God's space of work. Because nothing comes through the womb, nothing comes through to the surface without that darkness. You can't plant a seed and keep digging it up and being like, okay, are you growing? Are you growing? Oh, just wanted to check. It requires that darkness to incubate and gestate. And that's how God sort of mirrors to us, through this beautiful metaphor of the root of the rose, his beautiful codes for our body and for our energetic body. And so when we're rooted in this unknown place and we're sourcing our desire from love, we can really tap into, from my heart, from what I know that I love and how I love, what is it that I really desire from that place? Free and untangled from the distortions of the guilt, shame, of what other people have told me I should want. What do I really deeply desire? And then I can take that down from my heart. You can take that desire down from your heart and say, who does this desire? What does this desire allow for me to be in the world? Taking that down into the unknown, you can just let it sit there. Let that desire be there. Just like a rose, it takes time to bloom. Just letting it sit in your womb space and gestate. Let the desire just be. The desire is the feminine component of the creation process of just sitting in that beautiful aroused state of just feeling the desire and really being washed over with how that feels sitting in a place that's unknown. And we might not know exactly what's going to come to the surface as a result of that desire sitting in us. There's a lot that's unknown. There's a lot of yearning that happens when we have a really intense desire. I know Nina and I both really know that texture really strongly. But in connection, oh, the holy egg, yes. But in connection to that deep, dark unknown, really trusting that what is inside of us, God will bring forth in whatever is right and in its right time. And so, unless our desire is able to move from our heart through those channels of what we love and how we love and into that creational center, we cannot be aroused. And the healthy masculine, whether you're talking about men or you're talking about the masculine erected inside of yourself or inside of any sort of container, will not respond to your desire outside of your arousal. It's actually a violation. So when we come to ourselves with demands, I want this now. I want to do this now. Why isn't this happening now? And we're rooted in the head of what we think we should be doing, or what we think the men in our life should be doing, or what we think, all of these like very heady ways of processing or ways of relating to our desire that are not, we have not yet surrendered it to the unknown depths of our being, of the unknown, chasmic, dark centers of our being where God touches us, because God touches our womb. God decides what comes out of our womb space. God decides, right? So until we are releasing of that desire into that unknown, and we're willing to sit in that arousal and open to whatever moves through us, the right masculine, the healthy masculine, the non-tyrannical, loving masculine will not even touch it, right? And we often come to the masculine, or we try to get ourselves to be more disciplined, you know, or we try to get something from somebody, or get something from a man. And in a way, it looks like we are interjecting or projecting ourselves into their space. They're actually perceiving that we're not ready for them to come into our space. And so at a spirit level, there's this sort of right way of acting, right way of relating to desire that people know underneath of the surface. Men know underneath of the surface. You haven't descended into the depths of your surrender, your faith, your trust. I'm not going to touch it. And that actually is such a beautiful gift that they give us, right? That even the masculine that's moving through us, or that we get to erect within us, should we need to support us in our flow, to support us in our pleasure, you know, until we are able and willing to sit in that desire and let it be, and lovingly support us and allow others to lovingly, out of the desire in their heart, out of the inspiration that's brought up in them from witnessing our arousal, right? Because arousal is inspirational. It's like a good man is not going to become erect at the idea of you being like, you know, he really needs to see you wanting it. And so when we come to them angry, or when we come to, these spaces that are supposed to be containing us, like with this non-descended way of being, it is like really icky, right? And so connecting back to desire as this place for us to inspire out of our arousal is a really beautiful thing, because our desires are actually there for initiating us and the masculine into higher ways of being. So when we state our desire, right, and it's rooted in love, it's rooted in this space, in this inspirational way of being. We're sitting there aroused, really excited by the idea of whatever it is that we really desire. And he starts to say, how can I rise to meet that? How can I rise to meet this desire to please her, right? Whether we're talking about, a man, or, when we really are in a space of love for ourselves. Say it's, I really desire to have a cleaner space. I really desire to provide that for myself. Rooted in love, not in, if I don't do this, I'm a bad person, or I'm a terrible woman, but rooted in love of, how do I love myself? How does this desire, what is this creating for me? How is it supporting me? When it's rooted in love, that is where you source the inspiration to act from. And when it's not rooted in that, of course, we know it falls apart. But that inspiration sparks all of this fuel inside of the masculine for solutions. Or how can I, like I said, rise to meet her in this? How can I pleasure her in being able to receive and feel and unite with that beautiful texture of love that she's just holding inside of her. you know the masculine wants to be a part of that. He wants to create with that frequency of love, right? So I think it's really important that we understand how to be aware and awake to how to recognize what is our desire in the first place. I think a lot of times because we're plugged into these distortions of shame or distortions of what I'm supposed to want or what I'm allowed to want, it's difficult for us to really feel into what is my honest, true, deepest desire. So I'm just going to ask you, ladies, or invite you, ladies, into dropping in for a moment. And just close your eyes if that feels good. Really rooted. Take a few breaths, feel into your heart. And bring to your awareness just something that you really, really desire. It's rooted in the love. It's not something you really have to think about when you think about the desire. It just is. It's just resting there in your being, in your heart. I would really love that. That would really feel good to me. And so, just to bring some clarity, untangled from what you think you should do, what you think you should have, is that desire still there? And just check in and then recalibrate. So we've checked in to see that that is a true desire now. And that that's something that you really feel excited by in a right way. And so we'll go a little bit deeper here and just explore if there's anything else, outside of you feeling any guilt. Is there anything deeper relating to that desire that you want? Anything more? How deep does that desire really go? What are the details around it? You could have it all your way. What does it look like, smell like, feel like? And so if you can bring that and be willing to bring that down into the unknown space of your womb and just let that desire sit there and continue to feel that arousal inside of you of just that really yummy, holy yearn, and just let it sit in that womb space, feeling it really rooted in the love that that desire is sourced from. How does it feel? It might feel scary to leave it there. It might feel impossible, that if you leave it there, it won't happen, or you think that in order to have things go the right way, you have to manipulate it in some way. But what if you can just leave that desire in that space of unknown? And so I want to bring you back when you're ready. And if it feels good to share the desires that are on your heart and sitting in that space of unknown, I would love to hear. I know for me, I'm really feeling into, and there's this desire for marriage and just rooting it all in, oh my gosh, the depths of that love that I feel not only for myself, but for at a deeper level, what I believe that, God brings forth from our wombs what needs to be for the world. And so rooting that desire in that space of the unknown is me knowing that whatever's brought forth from that desire will be for the expansion, the purification, the love of the world of whoever I get married to. Our expansion, our love. And so that's what's sitting in my space. Yeah.
It's so beautiful. I feel like God's done so much in my marriage. I'll be married 13 years next month, and um, it's just a different space that we're in because I got married very young,
Mhm.
very feeling headspace type thing. I was the breadwinner in my family for a very long time. My husband was struggling with a lot of stuff, and the dynamics change, and he really wants to provide, and he sees my desires and like the stuff I've been working on, and it's shifting, and it's really powerful to see like how it can work slowly. And I think still there's a part of me that like feels unsafe, from
Mhm.
past. And um it's hard sometimes just to like give it to God and be like, okay, like I see him doing these things now. My husband's doing these, he wants to make me happy. He wants to provide that safe space. But I still sometimes want to pick it up and be like, okay, like I still need to make sure I am secure, in my job, just in case things don't work out with him. And I want to secure like control the scheduling and
Mhm.
myself very dropping back into that. And I really, the desire of my family is to have that where I don't need to worry about taking that on constantly.
Yeah.
I really want to be able to rest in a space where I go into work, and because I enjoy making women feel beautiful and creating things and getting that enjoyment of just being like, okay, I need to make these numbers, and I need to go home and I need to do this, and like that performative, and that's what I've been telling my husband, and it's working. I can see that, but it's just allowing it to sit there and not keep picking it back. That dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like digging up the roots to see
Yes.
if
Yeah. Yeah. That's it's so powerful that that imagery is really, and I just I'm really happy to be here tonight. And I had to show you guys this because after talking yesterday, Leah, I ordered these boots, okay, online, and they have roses on them. And
Oh my goodness.
they're so pretty, aren't they?
Oh my goodness, Heather, that is so beautiful.
I know.
That's a crier.
It's so funny because I love fun shoes. I do hair, and I teach and hair as well. And my husband is like, I just want you sometimes you can just look at stuff online that you like. Just put it in the cart online. You don't have to like, and a lot of times I wouldn't. I would like look at stuff and I'd be like, no, that's expensive. I don't want to stress out. But he's like, just look, because I want to see like what you enjoy looking at and what you like. And then he had ordered those for me like last week, like surprised me. He's like, I ordered those shoes that you were looking at online. And I was like, and it came today, right before actually he just came in before this started, which was so funny. And he was all
Oh,
excited. He
goodness.
was so excited to see my face. And I was like, oh my gosh, they came. But
That
yeah.
is so beautiful, Heather. And just Nina to tune you in. Last night we talked about like symbolism as a creational art and ritual as a creational art. And so, Heather, I hope when you wear those shoes, you can remember the root of the rose. And how beautiful is it that they're on your feet?
Yes.
Right? Like the depths of your root that go all the way down, and you can just be, oh my goodness, I am like so blown away by how beautiful and just timely that is. God is so good. Oh my goodness. And Nina, I'm really curious what's moving to you.
I mean, I loved what Heather just shared. I mean, I think that that is just, yeah, incredible, amazing. And I love symbolism as well. And to have like quite literally a symbol of, yeah, this space on your feet and on the soil. Like, yeah, that's just so, so magnificent. And, oh, I could relate a lot too to Heather, what you were sharing, but my desire, and I know that you know this, Leah, I got married in the fall to my
Yeah.
beloved husband. And now, I've really had for many years beyond even knowing my husband, the yearning to become a mother. So I'm really in a deep preparation of conception right now and holding, yeah, the desire to become a mother,
Mm,
hopefully this year. And going through a lot of holy initiations in that process of surrendering my timing and control, and also having to move through really last year, actually quite a bit of fear around it as I, turned 35 and all of the societal programming came online and, the very false narrative and stories of what it means to be, a woman who is now geriatric and aging,
right.
in the world, like, quote unquote. And I'm in a really beautiful place now. And it was actually really beautiful to have, I love this root of the rose thing, Leah, like just love. I'm, me, I'm a language lover as well. So when you spoke that, I was like, yes, so good. But yeah, it's really cool to feel the desire because it used to be a little bit more ethereal for me and actually more up here. And now it is really in my root. And I saw, I have often the vision of my two children and I saw them very clearly. And then it's been funny, Leah, because I've been doing a lot of desire kind of style visualization. And now it's also coming in more and more is also our home, our homestead, our
Mm,
farmhouse, the land that me and my husband and these children will be on. So that's been really kind of fun to tune into. It's almost like they're illuminating to me, like, yeah, the bigger vision, like beyond just them. It's like, here's everything else that's also going to happen simultaneously, and to hold it, yeah, just in like a really precious way. Something I've been saying a lot lately is, can I hold the preparation to be as precious as the promise, and just really sitting in the holiness of
mm.
preparation itself, which I know is hard for a lot of us as women, but the way is holy and it is sacred and it truly is shaping us for the promise that God has for us.
Absolutely. Yeah, I so feel that. And I love the mystery of desire. It's just such a unique, truly unique portal that we go through as women. And I think that there's just this sort of feeling that we have sometimes that, oh my gosh, what I feel at least is that I'm always wanting something. Oh my gosh, I get one thing and I want another. And it looks like greed, but in this sort of devotional framing, it's like every time I have a desire, it's opening me up to the possibility of everything more I can be, how I can unite with the masculine within myself, and how, when I'm sharing, like Heather said, sometimes your husband just wants you to be like, just look at stuff. And kids, little girls are so good at this. They're so good at just rooting into love and saying, like, I really love this thing. And they know already what it means. They know what they love and what that means about them at a very intuitive level, what they love. And so they know what they desire. Their desire has not been yet swept up by this like siphoning of energy of the should, shouldn't, guilt, shame paradigm that exists winding around us, preventing our bloom from coming forth. They know what they love. And I think what's so beautiful about it is that they're very, they kind of exist in this natural space of surrender because they're dependent on their mom or their dad to bring that forth. And I think it's so interesting because children are, closest to spirit. They just cross that threshold. And so part of our remembrance of, Nina would say, like, our divine daughtership, like we're daughters of God, is coming back into an understanding of that ability for us to just root in our heart and surrender it to God, to our husbands, and we're allowed to just share what we love, to share that arousal, that excitement with the people around us. And the important thing about desire, and it's funny, I think God is so funny when the way that he does this, but the desires that are rooted in our heart, we never really know how they're going to come back up to the surface. We talked about the root of the rose last night and how when love is poured into us and it crosses through our identity channels and down into our creational space, if you imagine like the roots, right, soaking up the nutrients from the soil, you have no idea what's down there. And that's God, like bringing his creational aspect to our desire. So that's where the birth happens. And when it's coming back up to bloom, right, to surface so we can see it, and it's important to understand that that bloom is for the topside world. It's our bloom is, yes, for us, but it's also what is brought forth into the world has God's fingerprint on it. It's for the expansion of everyone around us. So sometimes the desire is actually planted inside of us for who we get to become in the journey of it. And it has nothing to do with the desire at all. So sharing that desire with our husbands or with the men in our life or with our jobs or, I actually, when I worked in academia for a while, a lot of what I was not yet awake to in language, but I knew at a heart level was that when you are listening to the hearts of the people within your container, you get to expand too. It looks like the masculine is serving the feminine, right? And they are, but they're also serving their expansion when they're attentive to the arousal, the desire of the feminine. And like I said, it triggers all of these solutions, ideas of how I can be, how I can expand. Like even at a biological level, we can see it. That's just what happens. And so sometimes our desires are actually there to initiate us into that exaltation of the masculine, whether it's in ourselves, erecting the masculine within ourselves, or in the men in our lives or the containers that hold us, of saying, I really have this desire. This is where I feel like we can really be doing something beautiful. And it allows this really amazing opportunity for them to take that in and say, okay, how can I, in coupling with this desire, and you're in the unknown, but they're kind of in there, like, and just coming up with solutions or different ways of being. It's the most beautiful creation. The thing is, though, is that when we're creating with God, we don't always know, when that's traveling back up through our root system into our sense of identity and back up through our heart for the world, because our right desires are, yes, for us, but they are also best when they are rooted in how we love and how that love gets to pour out into the world back. And it creates a right circuitry, you know, because the masculine really needs to feel the weight of his impact, you know. And so just bringing all that back to creating with God, sometimes the desires that we have, they don't come forth, and we wonder, like, why did what I thought I wanted or what I felt like in my heart was really rightful and, in devotion to the expansion of my love and, the connection to my authentic beingness and all of these things. Like, we say to God, oh, I did everything right. But the desire oftentimes is meant to initiate us into higher ways of being that have nothing to do with the desire itself. So our problem is that we often think that our desires have to make sense, right? We think that our desires have to be logical, which is again like planting our seed in the air. It's not rooted in just that pure love, just I love it. It feels good. And we're not really able to follow along for that journey into the unknown of like what will be brought forth in our blooming on the other side of it. Because sometimes the desire, like I said, it's just meant to be there for the journey. And so that's just like a really beautiful way of orienting to our desire that has nothing to do with right or wrong. I have some like fun examples of this. I had this like desire planted in me for a coloring book, and I probably used it a few times, honestly, not that often. But this brought me actually on a journey of rediscovering my desire for art and for painting. And I had no idea why I had the desire. If I had thought about it, I wouldn't have gone on this beautiful journey of like God planting this at my root and bringing all of the art that I've now made into form, into bloom. And so, really taking that desire into my heart and bringing it down and letting it just sit there, I had no idea what was going to happen, but it sparked something in me. Or, you know, my bag, which is like something, a lot of people say, oh, it's excessive, it's not a need, all these things. But I noticed that there's a lot of inner work that's happening right now in my partner around money and safety and trust. And so a lot of my honest desires have been challenging for me to bring to him, but have ushered us both into this really beautiful place of expansion, of being able to trust, that we're provided for, that we're safe, that we're okay. And, hiding our desires from ourselves or from the containers in our life, the men in our life, it actually halts that ability to expand. It's not only emasculating, it's deflating in a way where it's hard to get excited. It's hard to expand. There's nothing there, you know? And so we often think that we're acting in service to men by not sharing our desires, like, oh, I don't want to burden him. I don't want to be like too much. But in that, we're not being really available to provide what the feminine does provide, and that is the immaterial impetus into higher form. And so it's really a protection of ourselves at the expense of the men in the spaces around us. And so we really have to be aware of how we are relating to these, our root system, our desires, and all of the ways that we block ourselves from moving into higher form, the truth of God, the desires of God, the will of God, by not allowing our desires to drop into the unknown. You know, we are the channels for God to bring the spiritual into form. And we talked about bringing spirit into form through ritual last night, and just how amazing it is to really feel in your body the presence of God through an intentional time that you set aside to interact with things that invoke feeling, invoke the feeling of the love of God. When you look at those roses, it's not just like something you experience at a head level anymore, Heather. It's something that you feel. And so when we bring the spirit to form in our bodies, you know, Jesus demonstrated this when he brought his son into bodily form, when he gave us communion, not to do in any sort of way that you have to do it in any specific way. He said, do this in remembrance of me. He didn't say when to do it or how often, but just bringing our desire gives us an opportunity to bring the will of God into form and to experience, not to know, but to experience the provision of God. And when we receive something, you know, that is like feels really good, and we're like, oh my gosh, I wanted this. I yearned for this. I desired for this. We not only know here, but we felt it all through the circuitry of our being, our creational circuitry, that heart womb connection. And when it's brought forth in that beautiful bloom, you know, we get to touch it and interact with it and feel it and press its petals against our cheeks. So like we talked about last night, oftentimes that those blooms are for a season, you know, and then sometimes we lose, or we think that we lost something, but the nutrients that even is in that death and decay, right? It nourishes our soul, our soil. And that also is provision. And so it just provides everything that we need in terms of reorienting ourselves to our heart and to, the unknown, to God when we're bringing spirit to form, and when we're sourcing our desires from our heart of like, I desire this thing, right? And it's a really beautiful thing, I think, to even imagine is this desire in your heart and then taking it down into yourself. Like, what does this desire allow for me to be in the world? And bringing this down into the womb space, just letting it sit there. And then allowing for whatever is brought forth as a result of that, be in service of the world, regardless of what it is. So I'm going to pause for a moment and move on to our next area of exploration. Okay. So when we are talking to God about our desires, about the lessons, about the things that He desires to bring to form through us, because even in the pursuit of our desires or in going in the direction of our desires, oftentimes there's difficult lessons that we learn along the way, right? And that is also bringing truth to form because we feel those lessons in our body, right? They're no longer analytical. They are, I'm feeling the anxiety here. I'm crying. I'm bringing the spiritual truth of whatever it is that I need to be learning in this time into my body, and I'm processing it, right? So something that I've done that I think has really helped me to more courageously lean into my desire and trust God with it in the unknown is just praying for God to bring my lessons and expansion through my desire. So just allowing the desire to be the portal through which I get to grow and expand, and other people around me get to grow and expand too. So it doesn't mean that you won't struggle or have times when you don't get exactly what it is that you thought you wanted. But it does mean that if God can see a way and you are willing to show your desire to Him, you're willing to really be courageous and say, this is what my heart really wants, and give all the yummy details of it that feel impossible, that feel crazy, and just trust Him on the journey of whatever, like for whatever reason He planted that desire in you, and pray for it to be used to facilitate your expansion and the expansion of others around you. And so then it becomes this very devotional experience of experiencing your desires and sitting with your desires for the transformation of your heart and your mind and your beingness in the world. And you still get to experience the pleasure of it, and I feel like if I'm coming to God and saying, I want to do your will in the world, I would like for that to come through the things that I desire. That has been that has worked, and not in a way where I feel like I need any of these things, right? Because the desires are not needs, or if I don't get my way with God, I'm gonna be mad, right? But just trusting, I printed this out because I was like, I have to share this with y'all. But I made this post a long time ago about this bag actually, because I had a desire for it. And I was going through all these weird feelings and I was like, especially now because they're trying to be like conservative with spending or whatever. Um, but I wrote out and I said, something that I've learned is that God cares about all of our desires. God doesn't operate within the matrix of what we think our needs are, because God is always providing what we need, right? God simply gives us what is divinely and rightfully ours in the moment that we need it. Sometimes what we think we need is actually not what we're needing in the moment, and the desires that we do have are actually things that we need to expand us in the next level that God would have us be at. I look back at my life and think about some of the things I thought I needed that I didn't get, and I recognize the growth that was created as a result of not having those things and moving in the direction of those things. I took inspired action and I expanded. A belief I strongly suggest everyone lean into is the belief and the truth, honestly, that you always have exactly what you need for any given moment that you are in. There's no such thing as deprivation or scarcity from one moment to the next. You are provided with everything that you need to exist in each moment, one to the next, until your very last breath. We're always learning crucial, critical lessons about life and about ourselves and about the nature of reality and love, deepening into surrender, deepening into love, and deepening into awareness. My secret is that I've coded my life for abundance, wisdom, and pleasure. There are things that I pray constantly for, and therefore my desires become necessary for my ability to expand into the reality of what brings my prayers into life. My desires then become my needs, right? Because it's what God uses to facilitate these lessons, which is what I really need. And this is in no way controlling God. I trust God to bring my prayers into fulfillment in a way that is honoring of His will for me. There are some desires that will never manifest because there are greater desires or better desires that must come for me to have my prayers answered, my prayer of God's will coming forth. Also, because wisdom is a constant prayer for me, I often encounter challenging situations, which in the material world look threatening, but in the spiritual world, I see as an incredible doorway into a higher version of myself, a version for myself that can hold more emotion, that can be graciously and deeper vulnerability, faith, surrender, and accepting of all the flavors of life, seeing it all as provision, drinking it all up. I know that I can never be robbed of something that is for me. I can never be hurt. My good is never withheld from me. Until my last breath, I am sustained with whatever it is I need for the moment that I find myself in. And so, with that, I want to pause and just soak all of that in and hear anything that's coming to the surface for you ladies now. I know that for me, in allowing myself to be creative regarding, the beautiful symbolism that this like root of the rose metaphor brings, I am really feeling into just exploring gardening in my life as like a ritual, or connecting to more root vegetables, or just even having more flowers around me. I think flowers are a beautiful way to root into the symbolism, and recognizing the way that in order for those blooms to come forth, the roots had to stay underneath the darkness. And I think that's just such a beautiful thing to encode your space with. You know, having the creational right as women to encode our lives with meaning, to be attentive to what's around us, is a really beautiful thing. And we get to infuse our lives with meaning. Last night, we talked about how often we think meaning comes from here, but meaning is really like an in the moment of awareness of like, this is what this means for me. It's not really something that you can watch YouTube videos on or try to figure out what it means. So when you find those things in your life that invoke desire or invoke meaning or invoke this imagery of love that really allows you to bring, like I said, the spirit to form in your life, it's a really beautiful thing to allow yourself to bring those things into your space, into your way of experiencing the world. And so for me, flowers are my way of doing that, and just really studying the earth and all the ways that the earth reflects this beautiful little piece of wisdom. And you know, I feel like if you ladies are soaking this in and feel complete, I'm just going to go through my notes, but I don't think that there's anything else here. Oh, yes. I would definitely ask and invite you all to pray to God to reveal your right desires to you, because it's so easy to, again, be distracted by what we think we desire or what we think we want that happens at a head level. And it distracts us from rooting into the heart and takes us outside of our right circuitry. And it disrupts our relationship to the masculine a lot when we're not heart rooted and we're not turned on and we're not, you know, excited for ourselves, of course, you know, because it feels really good to be in right relationship to that desire and to really allow it to move and root through us. So, with that being said, I feel complete, and I'm just really grateful for you all being here today, and really excited for what this brings forth as it's sitting in your creational space. You know, who knows, a month from now or a week from now or 2 years from now, this might come to your remembrance in a way that's powerful and brings forth a beautiful bloom. And we have no idea. I think that's what's so fun about it and amazing. I tell like people all the time, it's never about the one-on-one or the training. There's so many little intricate details in all this that we don't always pick up immediately. It could even be someone's tonality or their emanation, right? That is what you were supposed to receive in these times that we're together. Nothing in here may resonate with you even now, but something in the future might bring back to your remembrance this, and it will bring forth a bloom when it's supposed to, you know, in its right season. Everything blooms in its right time. So I pray that you all had a wonderful time with me here as I did today. And, you know, if all hearts and minds are clear, I thank you, Nina, for your lovely message. Oh, thank you so much. And thank you, Heather, for being here.
Thank you, ladies, so much. It is so much to think about and process, even from last night, thinking about it and going and dropping it into my feelings, and it's
Mhm.
been so good. Yeah, and it's a lot of information that just needs to process, but it's so good.
But it all happens like the way that I orient myself to information really is like I remember supposed to, I forget what I'm supposed to, and what has been rooted in my system has been rooted in my system. You know, from like even a scientific perspective, right? It's all in your subconscious somewhere.
That's actually very, oh my gosh, that makes you
It,
feel so
you
much
you
better.
don't. There's nothing you need to do, right? Just be in your beingness. Let it come to your remembrance. Let God bring it to your remembrance inside of your sense of self at the right time for you to root inside of your heart, right? And then bloom forth into the world when it's ready.
Oh, I
And
love
that's
that.
all there's to do.
That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so good, Leah. I mean, I just always, you know me, I love language and like, taking these concepts and just like pouring it all like honey, just into my heart. And yeah, just so many beautiful things that are dropping in. It's like just deeper layers of digestion for me too, as yeah, desire is always relevant for the feminine. And yeah, I really love how you spoke to some of these things because it kind of illuminated other aspects for me. Sync
Mhm.
system.
Absolutely. So thank you, ladies, and I bless you all. And I have no idea how much time it's been. I always say, oh, great, perfect. Okay. I will let you all go. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, Heather and Nina, if it feels rightful for you. And with that, bless you all to go into the unknown with all of this and have a good evening.
Always.